This is Joe Pugh for IFLTV. We're at King's Cross. Delighted to be joined by Ben Shalom, who's very cold, very hungry. You alright?
Very cold and very hungry. Yes, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. Look, you brought us here today. We've got Callum Simpson and Woodall Riley. Yeah. Callum Simpson's just been announced for the 11th of January. Woodall Riley's going to be on the show in Liverpool next week. But first, I want to start off by the announcement. Azim takes on Sergey Lipinets 1st of February at Wembley. Good fight for Azim. How did this fight come about?
Just a huge fight, really. But Adam just said he wants a former world champion next. We said Lipinets. His eyes lit up, and off we go. It's great working with someone that just wants to go quickly, wants to go fast, wants the right steps. But I think so far, he's just knocked every challenge out the park, and this is a big one. And we saw what Lipinets did last time out. It's a tough test, and but it's a big name, a big name to have on your record at 22 years old. And he's going to have to be at his best, but he's improving every single fight. He's getting better every fight. He's maturing. He's growing as a man. It's crazy to think that he's still 22, because I'm thinking, Adam, I've known you years, and then I've met him when he was 18, and 22 years old to still be doing it like this, and as quickly as this is pretty special. IBO world title, Sergey Lipinets, big night on February the 1st.
I know this is for the IBO world title, but should he get past this, there's nowhere else really to go than a legitimate one of the four main world titles, right?
So next, he's been European champion, became European champion younger than anyone else. I still don't think people give him enough credit for that. Now, fighting someone like Lipinets for the IBO world title, as you said, the next one's a world title. I think if he performs well on February the 1st, we're looking at that within 12 months. But he's very level-headed, Adam. Like, he doesn't really care about taking shortcuts. He doesn't really care about what he's earning like straight away. He's invested in the long term. He's so confident in his ability. He's focused on records. He's focused on titles. He's focused on the right development. He's focused on growing his profile. And you wish every fighter was like that. He really is dedicated to the sport and wants to be here for a long time, and knows that he's getting the right education right now. And this is a great test and a great fight.
We'll talk about the card next week in Liverpool, but I just want to touch on the main and co-main event. I spoke to both Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price last week on Zoom. Contracted to fight each other early part of 2025.
Yeah, as is Habazan, because obviously anything can happen in boxing, and I think it's a really tough fight for Natasha. It's a unification. I think she's shown no signs of aging so far, but you're always thinking it may be next time, and it doesn't come, and that's credit to her and her dedication. But this is a really tough test, and it's a fight that Habazan demanded as well. And I think women's boxing, if we're honest, had a fantastic year last year and hasn't had as good a year this year. And I think we recognise that, take responsibility for that, and want to make sure that we get it back to where it was. And Natasha's got a big fight in Liverpool. Lauren Price, who is probably the hardest fighter to match. No one wants to fight her. I mean, she's not lost a round in her whole professional career. She's only had 7 fights, and most fighters are thinking why. So we wanted to make sure that this division can be unified. This division, we can see an undisputed champion. And we have Habazan, we have Natasha, we have Lauren. We think the winner of whatever goes on there could face, if it's still going to be Michaela Mayer, who's the other world champion, then that fight. And so some big fights to come. But Natasha can't look past Ivana Habazan.
Roll on December 14th next week in Liverpool. Last night, another big announcement. Joshua Buatsi takes on Callum Smith, in which is probably one of the best cards in boxing history, headlined by Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker, and the rematch between Beterbiev and Bivol. Look, after Joshua's last 2 fights, he has said he either wants world title or Anthony Yard. Obviously, it can't be a world title, as the top of the bill suggests. So why are we at Callum Smith and maybe not Anthony Yard?
If I'm honest, it was the fight that was offered by His Excellency. It's a fight that represents a former world champion and someone that has been to the very top of the sport and proven themselves as one of the very best. And I think at Josh Buatsi's stage, he's come through every test, every single test, and fought the best probably domestically. He now wants a world level opponent, and he wants, not to say that Anthony Yard isn't one, but this was the fight that was offered. Josh is confident with both fights. To get someone like Callum Smith on your resume is a huge opportunity, and it's just a great fight. And yeah, Buatsi's ready for this, and I'm very confident with this. And as you said, it's a crazy card, isn't it? It's one of those. It's quite unbelievable, to be honest, because it makes no. Let's be honest, it makes no business sense. It makes no sense in any other world that we've ever been in, except for His Excellencies, and that's the vision that he has for the sport. And even with all the resources to be able to get everyone to do this, to be able to have us and PBC and Golden Boy and Matchroom and Queensbury and everything that you need to make a fight like this, a fight card like this, there's a lot that goes into it. And yeah, he deserves a lot of credit, and he's been very good to everyone. He's been very good to myself. You know, at times you could sometimes worry, you know, are politics going to play a part here? Is it going to be difficult for us if someone's got a favourite or this and that? That's usually how boxing works. And for him to say and step back and say no, for him to not get involved, for him to try and do the right thing for the sport and sit above it all, is what creates cards like this, and is what allows him to do what he's doing. And obviously I'll be there as a fan, more than anything. Obviously Josh will be on earlier on, and then what a night. It really is historic. And I think if you're ever going to go to Riyadh, if I was, that would be the card. You know, no excuses, beautiful time of the year to go there and experience what may never happen again. You might never, you know, knowing His Excellency has probably got the plan for the next one already, but it's weird that we're even taking it for granted, because it's so ridiculous, it's so out of this world, it's so crazy that it's almost like this, you know, in normal boxing terms, this may never happen again. And I would say, yeah, this is the card to be at if you're a boxing fan.
Yeah, look, it's a great fight for Joshua Buatsi. Callum Smith had a little rollout this Saturday, and then, yeah, excellent fight. Just wanted to know where we stood with Anthony Yard. Ben, Chris Eubank Jr., you spoke to Coogan in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago. You said you'd be putting an offer in for the Conor Benn fight. Since then, Conor Benn spoke about a potential option as Barrios. Chris has spoken about Lara. Where are we at with that fight? Where are we at with Chris Eubank Jr.?
Look, Chris has told me to make the world title fight. As a promoter, it would be amazing to see Chris Eubank Jr. to fight for a world title and become a world champion. Equally, all I've heard is maybe it's Chris's side being difficult or not making the fight. I think it's the complete opposite. Chris Eubank Jr. has been a pay-per-view star for many years now, would you say? Been in big fights. Whatever you want to say about him is a huge draw, and he's proven it time and time again, and has fought at the highest level. I think he has the highest viewing figures record ever that we've had on Sky Sports. And so he's not the type to just do a deal because someone says so. And we've seen him walk away from Canelo. We've seen him walk away from Golovkin. He's made tens of millions in the sport. And so if he feels that the value in terms of the Ben fight isn't in line with what he believes, and I think what most people believe. I think if you asked most people what they thought and part of that fight, they probably agree with Chris. And so he wanted that fight. He was interested in that fight, but ultimately, he is the A side, and he's not gonna just do a fight because someone tells him to. And when there's the opportunity of fighting for a world title as well, that's what he's instructed to do.
So from what you kind of been speaking about with Chris, and what you're saying is the Conor Benn fight isn't happening next.
Listen, I still believe that if Conor Benn decides to fight Barrios for, I'd say maybe 15% of the purse that he could get against Chris Eubank Jr., it will be one of the worst, especially being out of 2 years. And I appreciate people dream of being world titles, and I get that. But it'd probably be one of the worst business decisions ever made in sports history. But, it's his prerogative, and whether it's a bluff or not, I don't know. I still think the fight can happen, but it will happen, on terms that make sense for both fighters, and that's all it is. And so I still think there's a chance, but ultimately Chris has told me that if it's not on the right terms, then he'll fight Lara next.
So just last one on this. In your opinion, and in Chris's opinion, is it Conor who's preventing this fight happening? Because you said it was the opposite to what people think.
I honestly do.
Why?
Because there's just a perceived expectations that are way beyond reality, and that's something that's on their side. And yeah, of course it is. I think we've made it clear we'd like to make that fight. It would be, I think, look, has Conor ever, and I appreciate his profile's grown over the past 2 years, but I wouldn't say he's ever earned a 7-figure payday before in his career. Chris Eubank Jr. has been earning that for 6, 7, 8 years, and I don't want to get into the back and forth, but for me, and for Chris, it's clear that it's not his side being difficult.
Okay, last one. Have you spoke to Chris Smith since his defeat to Zerdo? I know he wanted to have a well-earned break after a fantastic run from Okoli to Masternak to Riatpur. What's next for him?
You know what? His Excellency and the team there really liked Chris, as you would expect. Coming in as world champion, giving that sort of performance where, look, they're all about the warriors. They're all about the boxers. They're all about going out on your sword. That's what they love. And that's why you don't see the YouTubers there. That's why you see the very best unifications, the very best fights there. And they really want Chris Smith. I believe from what they've said that he will be back. And I believe he can be jumping in straight for world titles again. He seems to have recovered pretty well. I spoke to him the day after. Of course he was blown up, of course this, but in his mind there was no doubt that big fights were on the horizon. So, but we'll be targeting May. We'll be targeting June. But as I say, I think there's perhaps an opportunity with the WBC title and other world titles for him to look at. I think he's created a big name for himself and a big legacy and a lasting impression on Saudi Arabia as well. Okay, Ben, we'll catch up with you next week in Liverpool. And enjoy the rest of your interviews today. Try and warm up. Try and fill up. Thank you, mate. Good to see you.